Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people in the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. Of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sass, and you can find all of this stuff at tgtmedia.com. We're joined today by a past guest who's been on the show before, because then he wouldn't be a past guest. So, it's wonderful to see. We are joined, of course, by Aidan Casserly from Scapula, which is a great comic. If you haven't seen his past interviews, go ahead, check it out, because there's about a 10 or 15 minute segment where he's talking on his own and I'm not even on camera. But
oh my gosh. Oh man.
How are you doing
Hello
today,
again, Kurt. We've been interviewing together for quite some time. I think I screamed out your microphones the first time around. I did make sure beforehand not to have any caffeine this time, so I am completely in control.
Well, we're a little bit older, a little bit wiser when it comes to this type of stuff as well. So
Fair enough.
back, I'm not sure. Must have been 2011, maybe 2012. You were back on the show here, and we were talking about Scapula. We were talking about your love of horror, love of the genre itself. But you're back again this time around now for the 10th year anniversary.
Oh my goodness.
Of Scapula.
10 years is a long time to be doing this. In fact, I found a little surprise when I was digging through. Every artist has a very messy home, so this is a miracle I found this. This is the very first Scapula publication. This is a zine that was made in 2007, I think sometime around the end of March, the beginning of April. So this is indeed the 10th year relic. I believe this is the last copy in my possession, thank goodness, because it's pretty ridiculous looking. And when you compare that side by side with the dummy book for what is coming out this year, I really hope there is some progress going on, because, wow.
Yeah.
It's been 10 years of telling these stories, having a lot of fun with it, and being able to indulge in everything that I love about comics and storytelling and horror, sci-fi, and humor, and all the dumb crap that I love so much.
Well, it's good to see. I mean, there's definitely progress for sure, obviously. I mean, you've been drawing these characters for a long time.
Super, yeah.
And just looking at your background there, of Scapula itself, I mean, your detail has improved so much since you started.
Oh, thank you.
But your comedy has always been what I've loved about it too. You have such warped sense of humor. I have a warped sense of humor, and I'm sure you do as well too, or else you wouldn't be doing this. But
I'll agree to that.
But after 10 years, though, I mean, what has changed in terms of yourself and maybe your style?
What has changed is actually, when you mention style, it's going through a lot of different styles. I think one of the things that I learned just by doing Scapula as long as I did and trying as many things as I tried was that the style and the tone changed a lot. Not really in a, it was this and now it's that. It kind of went all over the place. I mean, if you'll allow me to compare myself to some other famous people, if you look at Godzilla or Batman and you see like there's so many different versions and so many different tones to them. Sometimes they're silly and campy, sometimes they're downright horrific, and Scapula was a lot of going through that too. I had a lot of periods where I got to just be completely stupid, Mad Magazine craziness, and I had some periods where I got to be melodramatic and explore a lot of more of the gothy settings. Actually, when the Scapula webcomic had left off, I believe there was a 2-year-long story arc, which was just complete, just a complete goth drama tale, which I was pretty happy to do. Actually, it took a lot out of me, but I did it anyway. And we're back again for the 10th year anniversary, just for some fun. Actually, this one is completely indulging in everything that I love about monsters and, giant monsters especially. There's a lot of Godzilla, King Kong, Ultraman kind of throwbacks in here. There we even have a black and white. This is a dummy book, so it's not stapled. So if it all falls apart, that's going to be my little homage to Ed Wood, having something completely disassemble on camera. So we have the first story in it is a black and white tale, because I love the old horror magazines, creepy and eerie, and of course Tales from the Crypt and the EC Goo Lunatics. So I did a story here that's all about a wax museum setting, creepy monsters that come to life. A killer toilet, which we all know was a complete staple of Tales from the Crypt.
Oh yeah.
I hope you're ready for a crappy tale.
Oh.
There we go. I got to do one scream out and blow out your microphone just for old time's sake. So, who says we're not nostalgic around here?
Exactly.
We move on. Yeah, there's another big story in here. There's some retro artwork in here, looking back at one of my very favorite influences, Steve Ditko, who, Steve Ditko and Spider-Man are basically what kind of got me into doing comic books in the first place, especially doing Scapula and the retro style supervillains that I do, that, you know, are the cast of the story.
Yeah.
We got a few of them here.
That's awesome.
Let's see if we can hold it up. So this time, yeah, this most of this book is focusing on Scapula and his monstrous cohorts in a group called the Sinister Monster Doom Legion. And if that's not the cheesiest name you've ever heard, then I didn't try hard enough. But yeah,
Well,
this is a total giant monster love story. Here we have a return to the Robinosaur that appeared years and years ago as Scapula. The difference now is that I can draw the stupid thing a lot better than it looked before. If you guys want to see higher res versions of it, either go to the Kickstarter campaign or go to the Scapula website. We're getting ahead of myself here.
That's right.
But so this is a complete 52 pages in big magazine-sized form, because I like magazine size. It's big, you know, see more of the artwork than you do in an itty-bitty little comic book, which would be like yay big. And I am trying my hardest to make this happen for you, because this was about a year in the making, and I think it's what better way to celebrate 10 years of doing this craziness than doing something just crazy. I don't know.
Exactly, completely.
Good way to sum it up.
Well, I was going to say crazy and big. I mean, you know, why not throw it out there? So, well, that's the main thing about you know, working in this industry that you've loved for so long and doing it on your own. I mean, the fact that you're an independent creator, you've created stories that you're passionate about, that you loved, and everyone else is really appreciative of your work. So, how long's left of the campaign though?
How long is left of the campaign is 7 days.
Wow.
So, I mean, every creator out there, everybody who's loved a passion project has had to hustle for it. Some people get it done a lot faster. Good for them. Some people have to keep fighting for it. Good for them too. I'm still fighting for mine. So, sorry about that. We have 7 days left in the campaign, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that this gets funded, because I really want to see this happen. I've had a lot of very supportive people, some people coming back from the days when I posted the webcomic 4 days a week, and some brand new people who just found it randomly. And I want to make sure that they get the comic book that they really want. And yeah, really want to make this happen.
So in terms of after 10 years of this, you know, when it comes to your characters, did they evolve as well, or was that more of a...
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, when we began with Scapula, there's been a lot of funny supervillains you've probably seen in movies and comic books and whatnot. And Scapula, at the very beginning, did very much start off with the mustache twirling, the I am so evil and bullshit kind of stuff. From the very beginning, I think people were saying, oh, he's like the Monarch. And it's like, okay, but... Nothing against the Venture Brothers. They've done a fantastic job, fantastic characters and storytelling. But I think, you know, I had to realize if this was going to go beyond that, I had to do something else with the character. And pretty much, I think the most original thing that a creator can offer is themselves. And I started infusing a lot of who I was into Scapula, more specifically a lot of the bad side of myself, which allowed me to channel through that and even make fun of it too. Anytime I felt overly sensitive or overly hurt about something, it went right into Scapula, put right on display, and made as ridiculous as possible. And I think in that way I worked through a lot of things and just saw that, you know, in the end my problems could be pretty laughable if I was willing to just not be afraid to show them and not be afraid to poke them with a stick. So.
And who said comics aren't therapeutic?
Oh my god! Oh my god! They are. They are. Thank God for this. Being an independent creator has been wonderful. I mean, I do like my job. I do like being a storyboard artist, but the freedom of knowing that you do have something that's entirely yours, where you get to be the boss, you decide what happens to it, and your choices are in the end the right ones. It's extremely liberating. It's extremely gratifying, and I get to draw all the giant monsters and big girls that I like. So nothing wrong with that.
Jumping from a storyboard artist, though, as a professional career, I mean, you're drawing. It almost seems like you're drawing 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you're gonna get by as an artist, expect to do a friggin' lot of art. So I spend many hours a day just grinding away on this antique. Just got a script in one hand, got a bunch of director's orders on the others, and it's a job. I do it.
Yeah.
I don't complain unless if actually no I don't complain because like I said, I know what pays the bills. I know what puts the roof over my head, and I know what I love and where I get to be the boss, and that's Scapula. So that's another wonderful thing Scapula has done. Is Scapula has allowed me to endure having to be a working stiff, but at the same time, being fine with it. Not that Scapula doesn't have any business either, including a certain Kickstarter, where we gotta raise some dough.
It's a difficult gig, running a Kickstarter and then doing a professional side of your career and all that stuff. It seems like there's more and more projects that are seeing the positive side of things that get funded quickly, and they all jump into it, and they don't realize the amount of work that goes into that.
Take advice where you can get it, but in the end, what's yours is yours, and you need to focus on that succeeding before you focus on why other people are 10 steps ahead of you, why other people are 10 steps behind you, and why some people have just dropped dead when they were standing next to you a moment ago. It's just do it. Just do it. I want this campaign to succeed. I'm really trying my damnedest. If it succeeds,
Yes.
if it doesn't succeed, just like the old villain adage, I'll be back. Or no, that's Terminator.
That's
What the hell's the
Terminator.
old villain say? You haven't seen the last of me. I will return. You must have control.
I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you darn kids.
Hey, there we go. Ruby-doo-doo! That's the thing. It's one of the themes of
Definitely.
Scapula that I had never noticed before until my wife had pointed out was continuously jumping back up in the face of failure. And no matter how many times you get knocked down, you keep on coming back. You come up with a new scheme, a new devious plot, construct a new monster, and you just keep trying. You just got to keep doing it.
For sure.
Scapula would have, if I had really given up, Scapula would have ended a long time ago too, and I would have been much poorer the person for it. So
This is the 10th anniversary of Scapula, but you're not stopping Scapula. You're not quitting.
No. The Scapula took a brief break at the end of 2015. I think by that point I was doing a regularly updated webcomic with 4 updates a week. One of them was a big Color Sunday page, and the webcomic series lasted for 7 years, and for 3 of those 7 years it was 4 updates a week, which was exhausting. I loved every bit of it, but at the same time, jumping back with the storyboard thing, there's also so much balance in your life going on between what's going to pay for if this thing breaks and what is going to keep you creatively happy. The regular webcomic had ended at the end of 2015, and I took a year off just to study, to go back and look at all the comics that I loved and look at some new influences too. I was looking at a lot of Mad, a lot of Wally Wood, going back to Steve Ditko, going back and trying to figure him out again. He's hard to figure out. Wow, he's a tough one. But that's probably why I kept on looking at his stuff. Practicing a lot of digital painting. We're going to show this thing again. I was just doing my best to really make this comic look like the comic I had always wanted it to look like.
Yeah, for sure.
And, it's a growing process. It's a little tough for me to go back and look at my really old stuff now. I mean, if you really want to see horror. Yeesh. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Oh, Christ.
But that's what
I'm glad I did it anyway, because if I had stopped after page one and said, this doesn't look like the comic I wanted to look like, then none of this would have happened. So it's continuously growing, continuously changing, and continuously having to challenge myself. And this is the end result of another year of, just putting my nose to the grindstone, studying, and trying again and again and again. And if this one succeeds, you better believe there's going to be another one for next year.
Awesome.
So.
But that's the great thing about the horror genre or the sci-fi genre, at least from a film perspective, is the lighting. It's the dramatic lighting that you've always used in all of your stuff. I mean, especially looking at this take there. The contrast of light and shadow, playing with your characters in your the different scenes that you have throughout your entire stories, is just wonderful to see, because not a lot of artists take the time to focus on those subtleties.
Mm-hmm. It's not even something that I intentionally went in there for, because light and shadow and contrast all make really good artwork. The chance, if you can even see this on the tiny little screen, that's probably because I'm working on some more highlights now, so it pops out. But it's one of those things that you just you do it enough times and it just kind of goes in like osmosis or something. I can't think of a proper analogy, and I could probably think of a worse one, but we'll just leave that where it was. But yeah, it's like I said, keep challenging yourself, keep studying, find new artists, go back and look at the artists who you loved in the first place, and just keep on working at it, and it really does start to sink in without you ever realizing it.
Have you pulled anything from being a storyboard artist that you've included maybe subconsciously into your work of Scapula?
Possibly. Yeah, just keeping the story going, keeping visuals interesting. I think very much terms in visuals. I think that's the reason why Scapula was never actually scripted. Ever since the very beginning, Scapula was always planned out visually using thumbnails, using something called the Marvel method. For those of you who are familiar with your comic book history, you know that the stories were pretty much told by the artists beforehand after just, kind of having a vague idea of where the story would go. Sometimes they would know more about where it's going. Sometimes you figure it out as you go along. Maybe that isn't what the Marvel guys did. But anyway, the Marvel method is, planning things out visually first, and I think that very much comes from being a storyboard artist. So it's a little bit of everything. It's the storyboards, it's the comics, it's the movies, it's the watch a lot of films, try to absorb as much as you can, throw out what doesn't work after you've given it a good look first, of course. You don't have to be in love with every single thing that you do, or I'm sorry, you don't have to be in love with every single thing that you see, no matter how esteemed it may be. In the end, you're just figuring out what's going to work for your creation, or what's going to work for your job. But again, the tips that I've learned in storyboards, maybe they cross over into this, maybe they don't. I don't know. I'm going around in circles now. That's also part of being an artist, is you never have a point.
And looking at the campaign, you're almost halfway there, which is great to see. 7 days left. It is doable for sure. Is there any perks in particular that you did specifically for this campaign that we won't be able to see anywhere else?
One of the new perks that I had added was caricatures. So we didn't mention this earlier on. I am a caricature artist. I used to do this in theme parks and whatnot, but I don't do the big head riding on a scooter caricatures. I always try to infuse, horror, sci-fi stuff in there too. One of the things we are offering for this campaign as a higher level incentive is called Be a Monster, where I'm going to draw you as a monster. You can be tearing down a city, you could be carrying off a damsel in distress up to a burning windmill. Whatever your favorite monster is, you just pledge at that level, drop me a line, say, I love Cthulhu, I love Frankenstein, I love Robot Monster, and whatever it is, I will draw you as that. That's a full color caricature too. You get it on a PDF, you get it as a shiny glossy print, and as the very highest level incentive, you get your monster caricature poster size too, and it's fully digitally painted. It's of the quality I don't know if you can see this screen or not, but it's a full digital painting too. It's not just one of the regular pen and fairly in-depth covers. This one is like fully rendered out. So if you really want something that looks nice to put up in your fanboy home, and he's just on display, it makes a great gift. We all know somebody who is going to be the diehard fan for monsters and horror and all of that wonderful, wonderful stuff. And this is a great opportunity to get them immortalized. So all you got to do is pledge at that level, send me a photo, and tell me what you want. What monster do you want? It could be anything, and I will make it happen for you.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I love stuff like that because it gives you a little more freedom to do something new and unique, and no traffic. No two people are going to be the same. No two monster will be the same.
Yeah,
so that's always good.
I try to make it fun, try to make it personal. That's the thing, is I think the very best rewards are the ones that are tailor-made for the fans, because this is, like we were saying, Scapula, going back to it again, is a labor of love, but it's not only that, it's made for the people who love this sort of stuff. And I am happy to say that there are a lot of conventions I go to, a lot of stores and collectible comic shops that are just filled with people who can't get enough of Godzilla and Gamera and Mystery Science Theater 3000 and all that wonderful culture that we belong to. That doesn't include furries or sparkly vampires, but if they're willing to spend money on this, you know what? I totally accept them all the way. But this is a very loving community. This is a community full of wonderful nerds and wonderful fanboys, and we love this stuff to death, and it's great. So if, I want to give to them what they give to me, and that's being a part of this wonderful comic book universe, the comic book business, all of that, and I want to give them something back, which is doing a nice digital painting of you in a phony old gorilla costume carrying off some girl down in Bronson Canyon being filmed by a broken 16mm camera. I don't know.
In a tutu.
We have fun.
Is there anything that's going to be coming up in the next year that maybe you have some kind of concept in mind? Maybe not.
Oh, absolutely. So, I hadn't made any official announcements about the 2018 comic, mostly because I'm working so hard on making the 2017 comic happen. The 2018 comic is going to have a different theme. So the theme of this one was old school monsters, monster movies of the 20s through the 50s or 60s. Next year's theme is going to be a very different one. We are going to have a more goth industrial rock and roll theme. We are going to have a brand new character, one of our first central LGBTQ. Help me out here. What's the proper LGBTQ? Diffie Chuckle Monocker Stewart's is. Well, anyway, there is a brand new character who's going to be coming out next year. And, hopefully if we can get the 2017 one happening and going and into the hands of the loving fans, then the 2018 one is going to have a very different flavor. Once again, going back to what we were saying at the beginning of trying all sorts of different things, different tones, different genres. So rest assured the 2018 one is going to be a pretty big surprise. Yeah, pretty.
What about the, you mentioned conventions there. How's this year for conventions for you? This
year for conventions is my very first time at San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh.
I have never attended. I have never vended. I have been living in mortal fear of it because there are roughly 8.5 billion people who go there. And one of the things we know about a lot of artists is that they are socially awkward and probably live in basements like Boo Radley. But I figured let's give it a shot this year. I really want that's why I was trying hard to get this comic funded. That way we have it ready just in time for Comic-Con. That'll be its big convention debut. And you get to see me go down to San Diego and hunt for a hotel for roughly 5 years, which means I better go travel back in time and get that going. But it's also going to be a very big experience. So if there's any horror stories that anybody wants to tell me about Comic-Con beforehand, please feel free to contact me. Go to the Aidan Casserly Art Facebook group, leave a comment saying, for the love of God, bring a sandwich, or I hope you know where a porta potty is, whatever. Any interesting stories you guys want to let me know in advance, because I am a SDCC virgin, so to speak, and I would really like all the warnings I can get in advance.
Well, there's a large enough community of people that have definitely gone to San Diego, and unfortunately, I have not been there yet. It's something I've always wanted to do. So, well, I'd love to see what experiences you have for that, and
Oh yeah,
you know, I'm sure it'll be definitely an interesting experience for sure. So.
I hope so. Yeah, and anything that drives me nuts, rest assured, you'll see it in Scapula.
The con crud evolves into a monster of Scapula.
Oh, hey, there you go. Kind of a green slime, Tech and the Mushroom People kind of thing. There, the blob. There we go. Con cruds and all the masses of people just amalgamate into this horrid thing. Drop me your ideas, guys. Anything silly, just go post it right on my Facebook group. I will look at it. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but I love hearing from you and awesome. Your weird ideas. I love those too.
You must have a good group of fans over the years there. Is there anyone that sticks out that has either guessed your storylines or, you know, has been kind of that one crazy or true fan you've had over the years?
Oh boy. I don't know if I know of any one in particular. I was very surprised that when I relaunched the Scapula comic on the regular Scapula site this year, that a lot of the older readers did return, and I had genuinely feared that as soon as the comic went on hiatus or was tentatively ending for good at the end of 2015, I didn't think any of them would come back, and next thing you know, I just posted it, and quite a few of the people who had followed it for years, they came back, and it was a really, really wonderful feeling knowing that they would return even after a year of being gone, and it's good to know. I mean, that was one of the great things about doing the Scapula webcomic was the comments. That's the thing I absolutely loved and looked forward to, and talking to people and hearing their weird stories and having them, you know, just relate all of their crazy interests and whatnot. It was very flattering, and knowing that, you know, they cared enough about the comic. They cared enough about the characters to talk about them like they were real people, and that is the one of the highest compliments that a creator can get, is knowing that their characters are almost regarded as real, and it's moving. It really is wonderful.
You've mentioned your inspirational people before, like earlier in this show as well as others. Is there any others that you don't always go back to, but they also helped you in your terms of your artwork?
Oh boy, I mean, that's the thing, is that I'm finding new artists all the time that really inspire me or really challenge me. I mean, I had mentioned earlier about artists that I had loved for a long time, but there are, you know, you're always finding new ones. Artist named Aaron Alexovich, who does a comic called Serenity Rose. If you haven't seen it, by God, go and check it out. He had I could mention his successful Kickstarter, but I'd rather just talk about the fact that the comic itself is amazing, and it really challenged me a lot to, you know, want to do a better comic. That's one of the things, is it's all well and good to be inspired by the people who came before you, but when you start looking at your peers and the people who are more or less in your age group, and you're seeing the really kick-ass stuff they're doing, it lights a fire under you, and you're like, okay, I got to be better now. I know I said before, you know, don't always look at what other people are doing, but I also contradict myself a lot, even though I never contradict myself. But yeah, I mean, Serenity Rose was very much a huge discovery for me, and it, you know, hang on, I just totally went off on a spin there. There's a lot of good groups that I find online, just full of a lot of goth cartoonists, a lot of horror cartoonists, and every day, you know, when you're willing to get out of your zone and, you know, just kind of see what's going on in the world, you were discovering that, you know, a lot of people are making wonderful discoveries too, and, you know, it is inspiring to you to be more creative, to challenge yourself more, to put more of your stuff out there and not be afraid to take a chance in a new creative or business venture. And a realness to the show. We'll put in a 3D effect. Speaking of old 50s movies, yeah, if you got the One second. Here we go. Hey, kids! Scapula's in 3D! Woo! I did not steal this joke from SDC TV. John Candy did not do this first.
Oh my god, I haven't seen those glasses in a long time. After all of these successes you've accumulated in your life and your career so far, are you personally successful?
Personally, like emotionally, spiritually, or are we talking about financially and all that? I mean, in terms of professionally, financially, business-wise, I get a lot more work these days than I did when Scapula began. Scapula, this old zine came about at the end of a long and unhappy school experience, and I continue to do a lot of those early webcomics were in the days when I was struggling to make a name for myself in storyboards or freelance illustration or whatnot. I'm doing much better these days. I am able to get by on drawing, which is something that no artist should ever take for granted, and the fact that I can put a roof over my head and, put food in the fridge and all that, the fact that I'm able to do that through storyboard work is very gratifying. As far as being in a happier place, like I said, Scapula has always been around to help me work through a lot of this. I don't know what I would have done had I not had that, something very personal, something very much my own to vent in. I don't know, because I know there are a lot of people in the business who get very personal and very defensive about the work that they do for clients and whatnot. And, there's a time and a place to pick your fights and a time and a place to say, this is how I want it my way. And then there's a time and a place to just, know what's your bread and butter, know what's paying your rent, and know what really is important to you, what really is your passion project and what you love. So, and, some artists are very fortunate enough to make them one and the same. And who knows, I'm really trying my hardest to make Scapula succeed, and from there, if my goal is, the day will come when Scapula is able to pay the rent and all that stuff and keep me happy and all that. Something to aim for.
Very true. Yeah. We have a great collective of artists, of webcomic artists, of fellow artists that, we communicate with over the years. Is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to?
Give a shout out to? Oh man, it's because I've been gone from the webcomic scene for so long. It was a long time without talking to a lot of the artists, because a lot of webcomic artists do support each other, do check out each other's work, and like I said, a lot of us inspire each other. Looking back at a lot of the artists who had followed Scapula for years and years, there was like Bridget Spicer from Squid Row Comics. She's still around. She's still very active using her cartoons for reflecting on current events, but you can always go check her stuff out for that. A lot of people were always supportive. George Ford of Out of Next City, Bearman from Bearman Comics, Bearman Cartoons. He's going to kick me for that one. A lot of the artists I've been meeting recently, again, Aaron Alexovich has been very nice. Some of my fellow horror artists, Drew Rausch, Bob Lizarraga, William Stout is a nice person to know. He was a cool guy. I hate name dropping because you never want to be that douche at a party saying, oh, I know so-and-so or whatnot, because there's a lot of people in this industry who love to name drop just because they think that somebody's going to be very impressed about the time you were waiting in line for a vending machine and Will Eisner was at the front of the line and he was getting a Sprite, or nobody cares. Nobody cares. And also because I don't know if associating with me is going to make a lot of other artists uncomfortable or whatnot. But in any event, I am happy that there have been a lot of wonderful cartoonists, creators, comic artists, movie filmmakers, and whatnot that I've had the pleasure of knowing and meeting. And they've always, the good ones, the ones who really are professionals, are the ones who inspired me to continue. So. And hopefully I can be that for other people too, Anytime bright-tailed, bushy-eyed young artists come up to my convention table, I usually do what I can to, take a look at their stuff and say, that looks like crap, Good job. That's a really good finger you drew there, and hopefully just inspire them to keep creating themselves.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, I hate to say it, but we're wrapping up the show here, which is a shame because you're always a fun guy to talk with there as well, too, Aidan. No matter what tangents. Yes, you. Of course, you.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Curtis. You're so sweet.
But I'll put the Kickstarter campaign up on of course, the page itself. We'll definitely get that thing. But where can we find, of course, your work and yourself on the social medias there?
First and foremost, aside from the Kickstarter, which I'm really hoping everybody's going to check out, 7 days, can Scapula and the Freaks make it happen? I hope so. Other than that, you can just find Scapula where it's always been at www.scapulacomic.com. I do have a Patreon where, might as well mention that. I've had there's been a few people who supported and donated all throughout 2016. That year I took off to study and whatnot. There were some wonderful people. I don't know who I can name drop or whether or not I'm allowed to name drop them or not, but Byron Wilkins from 1977, the comic, some very, very generous people, Carrie and Marissa and Archie, and I know if I forget to mention anyone else, they're going to feel slighted. If I forgot to mention you, please, you can call me a stupid head on Patreon, and I'll draw myself as a stupid head, and draw you specifically, you kind patron, I'll draw you kicking me in the head, and you can print it out on a certificate because you have been very kind to support me throughout 2016. Thank you. You can find me on Facebook, Aidan Casserly Art. That's just my public page. You'll see Scapula. You'll see my new monster stuff, all sorts of updates on where I will be caricaturing next and doing live events. Want to give a shout out to the band I've been working with, the Rhythm Coffin. For those of you who have checked out the Kickstarter video, if you like that song that was playing, that is the Rhythm Coffin. You can find them, just search the Rhythm Coffin. They have a Facebook too. I perform with them every now and then. We've performed at the Whiskey A Go-Go, and that was a lot of fun. So definitely follow along for updates on when you can see me on stage with my giant monster props. Which is also a lot of fun to do. Other than that, to everyone who has read the comics and don't pledge to the Kickstarter and all that wonderful stuff, thank you. It really is wonderful knowing that people care about this jerk and care about me too. So I really, really am more grateful than I'm capable of expressing in my stuttering, feeble grasp of the English language way. Thank you.
Well, that's a great way to end the show because, you have to thank everyone that has helped you in the past. And like you said,
grateful. I really am grateful. And once again, when you were asking me, how am I doing these days, I'm grateful.
That's good.
Okay, we can't end on something schmaltzy like that.
Oh,
Let's end very tastelessly by promoting this thing.
Sure.
Scapula and the Sinister Monster Doom Legion. Big 52-page magazine-sized comic. Woo! Monsters, villains, all sorts of the good stuff. It's in 3D if you do this. Should not have done that. But that was a nice 3D effect. Thank God that wasn't hardcover. That's a good way to... Okay, there's a good way to end this show. I just hit myself in the face with my own comic book.
Done. We'll end it there.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Aidan, for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching to this. Of course, you can find this show and many others on tgtmedia.com. Of course, on our YouTube channel as well as Facebook and a few other places. Keep subscribing to the iTunes as well because the audio versions of these interviews are going back up on iTunes. So it's been a long hiatus on that side of things, but thanks, everyone, for sticking around for that as well, too. Tune in next week for another great interview with, of course, another amazing, talented artist. Who is that? I don't know. You'll have to tune in to find out next time on Two Geeks Talking. Thanks for watching.